Hello, welcome. We'll get started in a few minutes. If you have blocks or pillow, that would be helpful. Yeah. The street's loud, so hoping that the ocean waves can drown it out. Hi, everybody. Yeah, are we on week 9? I don't even know what week we're on at this point. If you are watching, say hello or whatever, so I know that you're here. And we'll get started. I'm gonna have you guys actually lay down on your backs. I know, like, that's the best thing anyone can say to you in the middle of the day on a Wednesday is lay down on your backs. So, lay down, just move your props out of the way for now. And bring your feet as wide as your mat or wherever you're kind of hanging out. And knock your knees in toward one another. So feet are a little bit wider than your hips. And your arms can either just be down by your side, or you might bring them to your belly and your heart. Just some place where you can feel supported and stable. And we're just going to breathe here for a few rounds of breath to ground ourselves, to kind of let, a really gentle practice open us up and release some of what we might be feeling, which is the purpose of this class. So focusing in on your breathing, your inhale and your exhale, expanding in all directions as the air moves down and into your lungs. So it's not just sort of up and down or east-west. It's like a sphere. And so imagine that sphere expanding all the way to the limits. And then as you exhale, that turn of the breath then begins to contract and lets that air be pushed up and out. So find that ebb and flow of your breath. You might even let your eyes roll up into the sockets a little bit so that your gaze is on your third eye. And then opening your eyes, let's just take a little bit of gentle movement. My coffee table's here, so it might limit my movement a little bit, but just a little bit of rocking side to side with the knees. And your knees don't have to go all the way over. That's not going to, the judge of whether or not you're doing the practice right. You're just listening to your body and what feels good right now. So it might be really gentle, especially if you've been sitting all morning, or standing all morning, or doing whatever you've been doing. Maybe you went running, maybe you went for a hike. The lateral movement of your legs, which is the functional movement of our bodies, it needs something to counterbalance that. So just a little bit of side to side with the hips and the sacrum. Pull the belly button down into the spine so you get a little bit of engagement here. And then toe heel your feet back to about hips width distance. Press your feet into the mat and just lift your hips up just a little bit. And lengthen through your spine. Press the back of the head into the mat. You don't have to bring your hips up all the way yet, just a little bit of lengthening. And if you are bringing them higher, imagine your femur is growing long too. So just taking some compression out of the low back and then bringing the hips all the way back down. Pause for a moment, find neutral. And then pull your knees into your chest, give yourself a little squeeze. And then either roll up or roll to your side and come up to a seated position. You might bring a pillow underneath your seat. And even just with that little bit of movement and that little bit of grounding into the earth, I mean, I already feel better. You know, my teacher, I've been lucky to basically during this pandemic practice with her 3 times a week. And I haven't been able to do that since 2015. So it's kind of awesome. You might have coffee. I'm still drinking coffee at this point. But let's take a nice tall seat. And well, one of the things she always says is nobody ever feels bad after practicing yoga. So, you know, it might be a pain to get yourself on your mat and you're like, oh, but I have to do this or I have to do that. But once you actually get there and you do it, you always feel better. So you might take Sukhasana, or conversely, you might kneel. And let's just bring the hands into heart center to start, Anjali Mudra, and stacking your shoulders over your hips, and then just place your shoulder blades on your back. So imagine your shoulder blades are supporting the back of your heart. So just a little extra support there. Hand of Buddha sometimes, you know, leaning back into the hand of Buddha. And one of the things that has been sort of coming up in my mind as far as, you know, what it is that we might collectively need right now in order to reduce some of our worries and some of our stress. And it's really, you know, we've been come up to so many obstacles. And one of my favorite Hindu gods is Ganesha. And, you know, it doesn't have to be a spiritual belief thing. It's more of the gods and the pantheon of all these different beautiful spiritualities are just representing energies, right? So Ganesha is the elephant, and I'm wearing him on my shirt right now. And he's all over Bali. I got this in Bali, and he is the remover of obstacles. Om Gam Ganapatiye Namo Namaha in Sanskrit means Ganesha, please remove the obstacles from my path, Lord Ganesha. And he's just one of my favorites. I just love that mantra, and I just love him as the energy of sort of, you know, slow down, ask for the removal of the obstacles, listen more, talk less, see what's going on. And we'll come into his mudra. So we'll take our Anjali hands, our prayer pose, and just start to twist the palms. The right hand will come in front, left hand behind, and then just drag the fingers till you can interlock them. And then bring that right into your chest, your heart, or maybe a little bit lower into your third chakra, which is your will to power. So, you know, your compassion, your will to power, just all in this area. And try to keep those shoulder blades behind the heart and stacked tall with a nice tall spine. And let's come into breathing here. Maybe just one obstacle that you've been encountering comes into your mind's eye. I mean, there's obviously very, very large ones out there for most people right now, but maybe it's just something simple. You know, we start with the simple things. We start with the small things that we have control over. So, you know, maybe it's that pile of laundry that you haven't gotten to, or maybe it's some project you started but you haven't finished. And those little tiny things are like death by 1,000 cuts. So they start to wear away at us. Make sure you're still pulling your navel in to support your spine as you sit tall. Feel your sits bones root down, the crown of your head rise up. And then we'll just switch the grip on the hands. And if you're in Sukhasana or you're sitting with your legs crossed, we'll just switch the legs too. So you might call on the energy of Ganesha to help you remove one of these really simple obstacles. Of course, it might be something larger you're working with. It might be something just, patterns or people in your life that need changing, that you need to shed. But you choose what it is that you might focus your energy on right now in order to help you reset, in order to help you de-stress a bit. So choosing something that's going to cause more chitta vritti, mind fluctuations, don't do that. Pick something that you know that you can call on that energy for and that you can succeed in. We set ourselves up for success to help reduce that stress. And so let's just release that mudra, and you can bring your right fingers down and we'll start to reach up and over. We'll take a little bit of some gentle movement here. So pressing the left hip down, you're making a nice long line from this left pointer finger all the way down to your left hip. And you can always come off the pillow here now if you want to as well. But sometimes having that pillow can help you get a little bit more space to find room to stretch. Other side, if you haven't gone over there yet. And then come up through center. Bring your hands onto your knees. Grow tall on the spine. Place the shoulders behind your shoulder blades behind your heart again. And then let your heart press forward. Come into a little cow pose, seated cow. So your heart and your will to power, your third chakra, Manipura. So imagine those sort of bursting forward. Come on, Ganesha, help me remove those obstacles. And then find that cat spine. You might even bring your hands interlaced out in front of you if you want a little bit deeper and into your shoulders, into your arms as well. But make sure you keep integrating all your body parts here. So by integration, we're still pulling the navel in, we're still maintaining length in our spine, we're finding that rootedness. Come down into center. Let's sweep the arms up, and then left hand will come toward your right leg, and we'll come into a nice little easy twist. So right fingers can stack behind you, either a pillow or block, or maybe onto the floor. And I realized recently, and I should have said this when we started, if you haven't ordered yoga blocks for yourself online yet, highly recommend it. If you don't have them and books are feeling too wobbly, if you don't have a thick enough book, like a box of macaroni or a box of rotini, like one of the big boxes, is kind of the same size. And come back into center. We'll switch to the other side. Bring the right hand over the left thigh, left fingers reach behind you. Keep growing tall. Maintain the length in the side body. Feel the equal and opposite as you stretch the heart and the head up toward the sky, but press the hips down into the earth. And then come back into the center. So let's just come over onto hands and knees. Move your blocks. I'm going to grab more space there. A little more space to move my table. And bringing your hands underneath your shoulders, lining pretty much your thumb and your index finger. Your index finger is going to face forward, but lining that inner side of your hand to the inner side of your armpit here, so that you have a little bit of a wider space. And we'll come back with your hips over your knees and find that cat-cow again. So a few times, just moving in a little bit more of a flow now. Really gentle. And you might even start to find, or as you move, discover where there might be obstacles in your body. There might be places where, oh, that jog I did the other day really made this feel out of whack, or you might just have some blocked energy. And we can call in the energy of a figure like Ganesha to help us. So it's all tools to help us find a more peaceful existence, to find self-love and therefore love for others, to find, just stuff about ourselves, observation and inquiry. That's really what a yoga practice ends up being about. When the mind calms and the body gets stronger and calms and feels more confident, we can really slow down and find out some stuff about ourselves. So stop and bring your knees a little bit wider and just start to make some big circles in one direction and then in the other. And we'll come back into center, tuck your toes, and reach your fingers forward. So stack the hips over the knees. We'll come into puppy pose or anahatasana. And from this pose, we really want to have length in the spine. So keeping the fingers tented, arm bones pulling in toward the midline of your body, belly button deep, lengthen through the spine. And then once you get down, you might bring your forehead down and let the heart melt a little bit more. Or if you do have a block or a box of rotini, you can bring your forehead to the block. So keep that integration of the belly button in toward the spine. And now from here, keep the fingers tented. Bring your forearm, or rather, untent your fingers. Bring your forearms down and then shift yourself forward onto your bellies for a Sphinx pose. So from here, pressing the elbows into the mat, pressing the hands into the mat. And think about, as you press down, also pulling back toward your hips so that the heart goes forward. Tops of the feet in the mat, let the heels fall out. Chin nice and level. Still have those shoulder blades behind your heart. Check in, pull that navel in. And now observe where your shins are and feel your shins squeeze to the midline. Now, if you have your glutes on 100% right now, release them to about 50. And you'll feel your legs engage a little bit more. So here's an active Sphinx pose, very still. But we're going to take this into a little bit more of a yin pose now. So use your muscular energy now to bring your left knee out to the side for half frog legs. We'll stay up on our arms for now. And making sure that you have your hip and your knee in line, and then your knee and your ankle. So you're making a nice right angle here. If it's not comfortable to have your knees, say if you have hardwood, I have the rug underneath me here, but you could also put a blanket or a towel. And this might be up really high, but over time, it'll start to come down. So you can always put something under here as well if it doesn't feel good. So once you get yourself to this position, and you've used all your bones and your muscles to get there, now we're going to start to let it release. So a little bit more of a yin feel to this. So let the bones get heavy as the muscles start to release. You start to feel the legs let go. And now you can even slump here into your shoulders a little bit. So let the heart hang. Let the muscles relax. And you might even let the head bow forward if that feels okay in your neck. If it doesn't, keep your head upright. And we'll stay here for about a minute on this side. So yin poses work with the meridians of the body, the energy lines in the body, and they work using time and gravity to help release tension in the structural tissues of the body. So, we do so much work in a vinyasa or alignment-based yoga to work the muscles, but this really helps with the bones, the fascia, the tendons, all your connective tissue. If it doesn't feel good to have your head and your chest up for this little sort of restorative back bend, you can always make a pillow with your hands and bring your forehead down. But wherever you go and wherever you are, try to find that stillness And consciously tell your body, your muscles, to let go. And then if you haven't put your head down, we will make that pillow and we will draw that left leg long. And from here, again, use your muscular energy to get yourself there and then just let go of everything into the mat. Back to your breath and your breathing. Inhaling and exhaling that large sphere into the lungs. And then eventually come back up into your Sphinx. And let the other side, other knee come out. Right side for me. Maybe you started on the other one. It doesn't matter. You have two sides. And again, get yourself aligned and set up and support it. And then begin to let the muscles let go so that you can feel some opening in the other tissues that don't get as much work. So you might let the shoulder blades sink a little bit, the heart sinks down, forehead comes down in a bow. If you're really still gripping through your glutes, even your belly here, you can let your belly go. A little bit different of an energy. We're getting a little bit of that more yang energy, that movement in this practice, and now a little bit more yin. And then bring the hands, maybe take a different stacking of your hands, so the opposite hand on top, draw your leg long, and then let yourself rest down again. Release, you might wiggle the hips a little bit to help that release. And let's bring the hands in right by the ribs. Keep the elbows in by the sides. We'll come up through just a little cobra. So coming back into that back bend and then pushing yourself up. Now engaging your belly again. Bring the knees wide. Toes can touch. You can even bring a pillow underneath you if you want. Come into child's pose. Reach the fingers forward. Try to keep the tops of the shoulders away from the ears, so you can relax through the neck. And making your way back up to tabletop. And option here, you can just, actually you could stay in your child's pose or in your tabletop. Or if you'd like to take a downward facing dog, you can tuck your toes and bring your hips high. Just one nice full body stretch. And then bring the knees back down. And we'll set up for deer pose, which is a nice little restorative twist. And you can do it with blocks and props. or you can do it on the floor. So if you have props, like blocks, what you'll do is you'll set up so that your the top of your right thigh is what I have here right now toward the top of my mat. And then bring the blocks or a bolster or pillows or a stack of both close, or nothing at all. That's fine too. You can also roll up some towels, and they're kind of nice and stiff and sort of can be like blocks in this situation. They tend to fall apart when you move them around and need them for balancing poses, but that's why the pasta boxes are good. Anyways, from here, start with a tall spine. Press both hips into the mat if you can. Your back hip is going to rise up a little bit, so you'll start to twist. I'm facing my Buddha head that's staring right at me. And start to come down onto your bellies. So you might need to adjust. I don't have a full bolster here right now. So adjust, and you can bring your right cheek down. And if you want a little bit more stretch, a little more twist, bring your left cheek down. And same thing, get yourself there with your muscular energy, and then begin to let go. So you'll feel this mostly on the top of your left hip. So the top of the top hip is where this really gives a nice stretch. Try to stay long in your side bodies. And come back to your breath. And just start to observe in your body if there's anywhere you feel those obstacles that you might invite the energy or the mantra Om Gam Ganapatye Namo Namaha to come in to help release. Help release anything that you're holding on to that's not really letting you live in a way that feels good. All that stuff comes and goes. Just try to remember that. Start to make your way up, bring your hands to support you. Come back to where you started, to that little side seat, and then just shift onto your hips so that your sacrum now faces your props or just the front of your mat if you're not using props. Bring your feet as wide as your mat or a little wider than your hips if you don't even have a mat down, which is totally fine. And then just let the knees go a little bit side to side. It's a whole new world of yoga right now, and in my mind, any yoga is better. Well, let me caveat that. I'm going to say any yoga is better than no yoga, but safe and effective yoga that's not making you do things to rip, shred, or tear your body, that's good yoga. And that's better than no yoga. So then just follow your knees over to the left to get yourself set up for the other side. So just taking that little side saddle seat and then turning toward your pillows or just to face the front of your mat and coming down on the other side. You can rest your left cheek, or for a deeper twist, you might rest the right. back to have the sacrum face your pops again, and just find that little sides twisting. And then let's come up and we'll just take a little hamstring stretch, Janu Shirshasana, before we come back down onto our backs for meditation. Okay, so right leg straight in front of you, and bring your left foot to the inside of your right leg. Now, if you have a strap, you can use a strap here, or a towel. You also don't need to worry about it, because it's not about, reaching your hands to the other side of your room. It's just about what you're feeling in your body. So find a tall spine again. Try to stack nice and straight. Put those shoulder blades behind your heart. Pull in through your navel. Keep your right toes really flexed. Left knee's pressing down. Begin to hinge at your hips, and you might only come this far. Blocks can also be used to help prop up your forearms if you need that little bit of extra. Now, think about the shin. The shin is still going to pull to the midline of your body, pressing the left hip down. I'm sorry, well, your left hip is pressing down. Left knee is also pressing down. And then from here, right heel presses out a little bit, so it starts to roll, and you feel that rolling of your inner thigh toward the ground. So keep that happening as well. And then you might start to go a little bit further. Try to keep your back nice and straight here. So your heart, head moving away in one direction, hips in the other. You might be able to reach your foot or your ankle or your shin. Doesn't really matter, but what you're getting is a nice stretch along the back of your right leg. You're integrating through your midsection by pulling the navel in. Keep the shoulders on the back, behind the heart. And you're also stretching along your spine, so helping to remove any blocks or obstacles that you might have in there. And when we remove those blocks and obstacles in our bodies, so our microcosms, right, in our minds, it can really help in the macrocosm too. So those blocks that we feel in our life, something that's an obstacle that we're having a hard time getting over, that's causing us a lot of stress, when we feel freer within ourselves, we have a lot easier time to deal with that obstacle in the greater world beyond us. And I'm playing this ocean wave music, and as you can see by what my house looks like, water is a very big theme for me. But being able to flow, when there's obstacles is so important as well. Whether around or whether it gets removed and maintains the flow or restores the flow to where it once wasn't. Come back up and sit straight, and then we'll switch sides. So right foot in, left leg long. Checking the time. And again, just take a moment with your alignment. Stack your shoulders over your hips. Place your shoulders behind your heart. Right leg presses down. It might not be all the way down. If it's not, you can always put a pillow or something under there. So some of us have bodies that are open in different ways than others. Left leg nice and strong. Left toes flex. Feel that shin start to pull in toward your midline as you press this right leg down. I can feel this right hip feels different than the other side for me. So my leg's actually up higher here because I'm a little unbalanced. Left inner thigh starts to roll down. As you pull your navel in, keep the shoulder blades behind the heart. Remember, Buddha's got his hand on the back of your heart. And then start to bow forward. If you want, you can take blocks. If you can reach, if you feel really open, if you are one of those people that are really open, go for it. Always go to where your limit is. And if you aren't really open, don't beat yourself up for that. Like I said, we're all different. We all have, and the conditions of your environment change and affect you as well. It's a little chilly today, so if it was 90 degrees, you might be laying on your lap right now. It just depends. And this is just a nice little easy short practice to just get a little bit of movement, to get a little bit of solace, and to make you feel better, to make you feel good. back to your breathing. Keep your heart moving in the opposite way of the hips. Feel that nice, long, equal opposite stretch of your spine and also the back of your leg. And then start to come back up. You can put both legs out in front of you and just give them a little shake. And before we get down onto our backs, let's come to Baddha Konasana. So bring the soles of the feet together. Now you can keep them a little further away from you, or for a little deeper stretch, they can come in closer. So choose where you want them. And then same thing, right? So the soles of your feet are now touching, which is something that you don't feel very often, right? Your feet are usually into the mat, into the floor, the ground when you're walking around. But right now you feel this connection of the hemispheres of your body through this little nice circular thing you got going on. No obstacles here. All your energy flowing. So same thing as we did before, hinging at the hips, moving the heart away from the hips, pressing the hips down, along in your spine. Just lean forward. Let's get a little bit more hip opening, because hips tend to hold most of our emotional obstacles. And then let's come back up, and we'll come onto the mat. Now grabbing a block or a pillow. I'm going to use a block. We'll come into a supported bridge pose. So we did that little bridge at the very beginning. We'll come into a little bit more of our guided meditation here. So we'll start by lifting the hips up, bringing it right under your sacrum, and having a little space here. Now your feet can stay under the knees. They can come wider, knock the knees in. You might be able to extend your legs. My couch is annoying, so it cannot. But come into your variation of a supported bridge pose to release some tension in the low back, to help that low lumbar spine find expansion, remove those obstacles. And now as you lay here, you can close your eyes or take a soft gaze. And coming back to the energy of Ganesha. Om Gam Ganapati Namo Namaha. Lord Ganesha, remove the obstacles from my path. As the breath moves in and out, filling the sphere, and then emptying the sphere. Ebb and flow of the tide. Start to see as these obstacles that you may have identified or may not. You might just look at them as, just a log in the road or some rocks that are in your way as you're climbing down a path. Start to see as they remove themselves, maybe through water pushing them, flowing them downstream from where you are. Maybe through wind rustling through the leaves, opening up a space for you to pass through. But feel that Ganesha, Ganapati energy as it moves through your body and your mind within your microcosm to help you remove those blockages that may be in your macrocosm. You might see a little fire that burns away anything that is not serving you. Wherever you are with your bridge, lift your hips up off of anything supporting you, so either your block or your pillow, and just come all the way down onto your mats and extend yourself out in Shavasana. You can also take any other pose that feels good, you might come back to Supta Baddha Konasana and bring the soles of the feet together. And also, if you'd like to take seated meditation, you're more than welcome to. So continuing with this feeling of removal of blockages, of obstacles, you might see as the earth just shifts a little bit in one way or the other so that a new path is visible. Sometimes the removal of obstacles is not so much the destruction and the physical removal, but that a new path to get from point A to point B reveals itself. So Ganesha, his energy is very much that as well. So when you call upon that energy in the universe around you, be open to how it manifests. Because it will manifest. And if you observe, if you stay vigilant, and you stay open to possibilities, it might reach you in ways you didn't expect. And knowing that and trusting that in and of itself is a huge stress reducer, a huge reset. I know it's hard right now to kind of trust and be like, yeah, everything's going to be great. But when you're working through the process and you're working with these small little chunks that you can bite off and deal with, it will be okay. From your Shavasana, or whatever prone, supine pose rather, that you have, take a nice little stretch, full body. Wiggle your fingers, your toes, and roll to one side. Come into the fetal pose so that you can find that transition from, the earth and rest, repose, back to movement and back to interaction. And then making your way back to a seated position, maybe Sukhasana or maybe kneeling. I think I might kneel here. And we'll come back to the Ganesha Mudra. So right in front of left, pull till the fingers interlock, and then just bring that in close to either your heart or your solar plexus, or somewhere in between. Stack your shoulders, navel in, place those shoulder blades behind your heart, feel the hand of Buddha, giving you a little pat on the back, saying, it's going to be all right. And then feel that energy of Ganesha again, of removal of obstacles. Om Gam Ganapatiye Namo Namaha. And then we'll switch the grip. Om Gam Ganapatiye Namo Namaha. And then bring the hands into heart center, Anjali Mudra. Mudra, seal of reverence, devotion, and gratitude for each other and for this practice that has been handed down through many, many years. Honoring that and honoring the light within one another. Thumb knuckles to the third eye. Bring the elbows wide, heart to the sky. And bowing forward. Namaste. Namaste. Thank you all so much for joining me today for a little rest and resetting and de-stressing and all that good stuff. If you have any questions, you can always contact me on Facebook or by email. And yeah, so let's see. Tomorrow night at 5:30, I'll be teaching a Luna Vinyasa flow on the Moon and the Mat Facebook Live, if you're interested in that. And then next week I have, this is every Wednesday, so you can always come to this. Next week I have a workshop on Monday night for Sun Salutation B. Thank you, Brianna. Thanks, Val. So I'll see you guys soon, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Namaste.